Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're going to do a little bit of disassembly and maintenance on this little knife right here. This is the Cold Steel Ultimate Hunter. First off, I want to thank my buddy Nathan for sending this guy along. He's, I believe, Nasty Nate Outdoors on the YouTube. But anyways, interesting knife. We're going to just go ahead and take it down here. One thing to highlight is that right now the centering is pretty damn good. The action is smooth. I mean, the knife is running beautifully. A little dirty at the moment because I was using it to cut up an apple at the lunchtime. Well, to crack an apple in half, let's be real here. But either way, so let's go ahead and do the disassembly. Go ahead and start off. That looks like T6 to me. T6 feels a little ridiculous on this knife, I'll be honest with you, because, well, yeah, I don't get why they couldn't do a larger screw here. Seems a little off to me. There we go. Pop that out. We're seeing some blue Loctite on this screw. So that's a useful thing to know. I'll make sure and re-Loctite it on the other side there. One possibility that's going on here is that these screws are actually going all the way through into this other chunk of Grivery or whatever the heck it is that's G10. Is it G10? Yeah, it looks like it's a G10. Either way, the screws are going into the other side here, and we won't be able to remove it until we remove the other side. We'll find that out, but that's okay. Then I'll pop this guy off, and I'm betting T10 on that. Could be T15. Nope, T10. We got it. Alrighty. Pop this scale off. We can see here, this is a non-free spinning pivot, which is a beautiful thing. Absolutely. And now let's see if we can pop this off. So we've got these two positioning pins here. This is the stop pin here for, well, stop pin. It's the pin that makes the triad lock a triad lock. And on the other side here, we've got the pin that is making the, it serves as the axis, so to speak, for the triad lock's lever. But it may be a little tricky to lift this off of here. What we can see, though, is that it is separating itself off, so that's good. So this will just be a process of sort of slowly levering this guy off. Brute force won't do us a lot of good. So much as a little bit of concerted wiggling. There we go. Okay, this guy is dry, and that's okay. But right here, actually, we get a beautiful demonstration of how the triad lock works. You can see here that the blade comes into contact with this stop pin here, which stabilizes one element of it. Then when we pop this guy open, it allows the knife to rotate freely, and so it rotates, and then this pin in here actually stops the blade from coming any further and slamming into the triad lock bar. Then when the knife opens, this levers up and then drops into place. The existence of this little extra stop pin here is one of the things that makes the triad lock a little stronger than some of the other back locks out there. So that's a beautiful thing. And let's see here. It's stuck up against the stop pin there, but that's okay. So I want to go ahead and push the pivot out of here. And this knife is completely dry. So, okay, I'm going to level with you here. I could very easily remove this lever and whatnot. The thing is, though, this is not a weak spring. This little piece of what feels to be aluminum, maybe, yeah, I think it's aluminum here, is holding this spring nicely, and you can see it's braced on both sides, which is actually an improvement relative to Spyderco's back locks, but it's holding that spring in there, and if I pop this guy off, I'm going to have to get it back on under spring tension, and that's not going to be pleasant. So what I'm going to do instead, given that there's no reason to get to the other side of this, and yeah, it's just a little bit of gunk here. I'm just going to apply some lubrication to the inside of this here and overall and not really mess with it, which is kind of a beautiful thing. I'm going to clean the rest of it off with some rubbing alcohol, 91% isopropyl over here. Put a little bit on this little tab and, you know, why am I cleaning the G10? What am I expecting to find? Not a whole lot. But there you go. Interesting. So there is a little bit of what looks to be a plastic or a Teflon underneath the bronze washer here that helps it, and that's how it's running dry. Okay, and so we got the Teflon on the other side there. Whatever. That's fine. I just need to make sure that that goes back in. And it is on the side of the blade rather than on the side of the on the scale. So, no problem. Just cleaning this whole thing off here. One area where you do want to make sure and give a little bit of extra love, and I'm going to use a Q-tip to do it, is in this little area where the back lock is cut out, I'm sorry, the triad lock is cut out, you want to make sure that there's not a bunch of gunk built up in there, because as you saw, if this lock bar isn't able to drop into this area, then the knife isn't going to fully lock up. So, you know, that doesn't tend to accumulate too much crap, but it's still something you want to keep in mind and something you want to tread carefully with. Clean out the pivot area. Beautiful. I'm going to go ahead and wipe off these washers, although these are not that dirty. I don't get the impression this has been carried all that much, but maybe it has been. I've given it probably 3 or 4 days. This is a knife that I've actually already been carrying a fair amount, and I'm carrying it a lot more than I might normally, because honestly, I don't quite feel like I understand it yet. It's a knife that's actually very nice in a lot of ways. I don't tend to love cold steel, but this is a very humble knife. It kind of reminds me of the Code 4, except without the metal. And, you know, it is a solid little knife. And so, in that way, I just want to make sure I'm giving a good verdict here. Very often I can understand the piece of gear relatively quickly, but this one I really want to soak in a little bit, make sure. So I'm going to use I'm using nano oil as lubrication here. You could use anything else. There's no big advantage here, but it is nice. I'm using the heavier weight, which is, it's the 85 weight nano oil, and the reason I'm using it instead of another weight is just that it's a little bit thicker, and this is not exactly an action showpiece. Any back lock or triad lock, for that matter, knife is not going to have just an incredible over-the-top, oh my god, sort of an action. This is, and I actually don't need to put any lubrication on the backside of that washer. It shouldn't spin around too much. The biggest spin should be of this Teflon against the other washer here, and then potentially of the Teflon against the knife itself. But either way, just dropping that on there here. Okay, come on now. Just gonna encourage this to head on down there. There we go. All right, so now that's there. Beautiful lubrication is dispensed. I'm going to use a little bit of the slightly thinner oil right here for this pivot. This, of course, is what the lock bar rotates around. You can also see that this hole is slightly elliptical, allowing the lock bar to move a little bit forward and backward. You know, I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't thought all the way through the engineering reasons for that, but and maybe it's just poor tolerances and it doesn't matter. I suspect that it's purposeful, because it allows, yeah, that is true, because it actually pushes the lock a little bit forward, so it pulls back when it locks down, which would increase the engagement here. Okay, that makes sense. So, yeah. A lot of people comment on my videos about, like, lock strength and whatnot about the triad lock. People are really like, oh my god, Nick, no, the triad lock is the most powerful, incredible lock ever designed. You know, oh, how dare you, you know, not bow down before its incredibleness. And, you know, that's fine. I mean, the triad lock is a solid lock. Absolutely 100%. I never want to say anything otherwise. But at the same time, I think a lot of that discussion and a lot of that, I don't want to say fanboyism, but it kind of is due to the marketing videos. Cold Steel is very effective at marketing to people, especially people new in the knife world, or, well, shall we say, the younger audience. And so a lot of people come into this with the impression that Cold Steel is bringing a strength to the table that nobody else can match. They've done a couple of high-profile videos showing, you know, oh, I'm going to beat the crap out of this other. Okay, whoa there. That's dangerous. Right there, this little pin has come out of there, and if I hadn't noticed that, that could have been a problem. So what I'm going to do here is pop this back open and figure out what that is. That's probably the stop pin for when the blade closes. That's my guess here, but we're gonna take a closer look here. Come on now. Pop it off. No, that's not the blade close. Okay, it's this pin right here. It's this pin that holds the bottom side of this brace for the triad lock. Not sure why, why that went flying anywhere, but I'll go ahead and drop it back in there. Problem solved. Case closed. Glad I noted, while I got this open, let me make sure there are no other holes that shouldn't be filled. This guy right here is, these are both going to be these 2 screws. Yeah, the pivot I know is missing. Okay, we're good to go. Anytime you find spare parts after you're done, you got yourself a problem. So, just lowering this guy onto here. Pop free. Shake it around, nothing fell out. Beautiful. Case closed. All right, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is, seeing, again, evidence of blue Loctite on here, and Cold Steel, thank you for using blue Loctite rather than the red stuff, because it's easily removable. Put some fresh Loctite on there. Now we'll tighten it down. I'm just going, I don't want to say loose, but I'm not going too torquey on that right yet because we still have some other work to do in the back of the knife here. Pop this loose. Kabam. Alrighty. There we go. And twist this little guy in here. Now we check the tension here. Oh, that is smoother. Nice. I'm going to see if I can play with the, actually, let's check the blade play first. No blade play, that's good. I'm going to see if I can play with the pivot tension a little bit to get things a little smoother. My goal is maybe if I can back off the tension slightly and then have 0 blade play. Oh, yeah, that's really nice. See, now it just kind of falls. You put your finger there, it catches against here. But that is smoother. But it did add some blade play. All right, I'll tighten it all the way down. No biggie. No play. I think there is a happy medium there. Okay. Hey, go a little tighter. This is something you end up doing by feel and partly by trial and error. You want to make sure that you're as loose as you can run it. There we go. That's better. Without actually being loose. Then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use some of this thicker oil and I'm just going to put it right along the back of the blade tang here. The reason for that is that it lubricates, as this knife is opening and closing, the tang of the blade goes along the bottom of this little portion here of the lock bar, and so there is metal on metal sliding going on there, and so you can really smooth out any backlock knife or triad lock for that matter just by applying a little bit of grease to that region there. Really makes things a little nicer. Doesn't affect the lockup here. Lockup is still rock freaking solid, and there we go. So, that's your disassembly and maintenance for your Cold Steel Ultimate Hunter here. I gotta say, this knife is still impressing me. It's not a flashy knife at all. It's not a super, oh my god, display piece, but at the same time, it's made well. It's made solidly. There's no real complaining too much about it. And so, and it's nice to see that the disassembly revealed that even though it's not made expensively, it's not, titanium liners in there or anything. It is made well. With these thick chunks of G10, it's going to be fine. So, there you go. That's your disassembly. Wipe off the blade here. Hope this has been interesting to you, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of the day, and that your steel remains good and warm. If you want it warm. Maybe if you're working like a freezing something, you don't want it. But either way. All right. Bye now.